Mr. Derek Chauvin betrayed this badge.
Derek Chauvin did exactly what he had been trained to do.
Cause of death, death. Complicating, that is involving law enforcement, subdual, that is subduing George Floyd, restraining him and compressing his neck.
Mr. Floyd died of a cardiac arrhythmia that occurred as a result of hypertension, his coronary disease, the ingestion of methamphetamine and fentanyl.
The murder trial of Derek Chauvin, a former police officer charged with the death of George Floyd, beginning with emotional testimony this week. Cause of death expected to be a pivotal point in the case as both sides argue whether Floyd was killed by the officer.
Joining us with his legal input, criminal defense attorney Robert Bianchi. Robert, good morning. What first are your impressions of what we saw yesterday?
I think that we were all kind of shocked as former homicide prosecutors when we listened to the defense opening, if in fact it's true, and typically defense lawyers, or any lawyer for that matter, are not going to lie to a jury in the opening, that the medical examiner for the county originally declared that this was a medical event and that this was not as a result of the compression on the neck. The defense lawyer went even further than that and indicated that there was no evidence of contusion or injury in the neck area or to the windpipe, or that this had anything to do with asphyxia. And that when the examiner came out with that conclusion, that the government wasn't happy with that, so they went to outside experts that they typically don't use and actually rebuffed the conclusion of their own county medical examiner. That's a pretty big thing that we were all shocked at when we were covering this yesterday, because cause and manner of death is crucial for a homicide prosecutor, because you have to prove that beyond a reasonable doubt to 12 jurors. In all the homicide cases I've ever had or covered, I have never seen one where a prosecutor has to fight over what the cause and manner of death is.
Yeah. You know, so the prosecution's job is to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that what Derek Chauvin did, the excessive use of force, was the direct cause of George Floyd's death. And you heard his defense attorney say that this maneuver, placing his knee on George Floyd's neck, was actually in, the Minneapolis police handbook. It was an accepted procedure. There are two things that we learned yesterday that could go against that. First of all, we learned that the time that Derek Chauvin had his knee on George Floyd's neck was longer than we originally thought it was. And then the first witness was a 911 dispatcher who said that she was watching this arrest unfold on video stream, and she was so disturbed by what Derek Chauvin did, she actually called a police sergeant to complain. Take a listen to those two moments during yesterday's opening statements.
9 minutes and 29 seconds. The most important numbers you will hear in this trial are 929.
My instincts were telling me that something's wrong. It was an extended period of time. They hadn't told me if they needed any more resources.
So, Robert, how powerful is her testimony?
You know, Carly, when her testimony was coming out on direct examination, you understood why the prosecutor called her. The prosecutor's going to call her, all the witnesses that were at the scene, and a number of other individuals, including a police officer. They won't call the police officer, but they'll try to elicit testimony where they were trying to tell Chauvin, put him in a side recovery position and you're using excessive force. But here's what the defense did on cross-examination. You're not a police officer, are you? No. You have no training on use of force? No. You don't know anything about crowd control, and basically what the defense has been arguing, the situation that was unfolding that was putting the other officers at risk, and you don't know how much force he was applying or he wasn't applying. So while it was a good witness for the government and she did a good job, she said she was concerned, but she wasn't 100% certain what was really going on.
A very interesting opening day. Robert Bianchi, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure, guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Still ahead.